The great chamber of Nexus Prime stretched out like a metal cave, filled with strange lights and floating platforms where alien beings from across the galaxy gathered to make important decisions about the future of all known worlds. Consul Veltar stood on his platform high above the others, and his forearms moved in patterns that meant he was very worried about something big and dangerous that threatened everything they had built over thousands of years. The Krillian had purple skin that looked like smooth stone and eyes that glowed yellow in the dim light of the chamber, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient wisdom and deep concern for what he had discovered about the newest species to join their galactic community, fellow beings of the great Consul. Veltar began, and his words echoed through the vast space. We face a crisis unlike any we have encountered in our long history of peaceful cooperation among the stars. The other aliens on their floating platforms turned their various heads and eye stalks and sensory organs toward him because they could hear the fear in his voice, even though he tried to hide it behind formal words and proper diplomatic language. The species from Sol 3, who call themselves humans, have been studied by our best scientists for 3 standard years since first contact, and what we have learned disturbs the very foundation of biological law that governs all life in our galaxy. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim sat quietly on the human platform near the center of the chamber, and he looked exactly like what was causing all this panic among the alien races, because at 89 years old by human standards, he appeared strong and healthy and showed no signs of the biological shutdown that should have begun years ago. His black hair had turned silver, but his eyes were bright and alert, and his body moved with the confidence of someone much younger, according to the standards that every other species in the galaxy followed without question. Every known species, Veltar continued, while gesturing toward a large display that showed biological data from hundreds of different worlds, follows the universal pattern of predetermined expiration that prevents any individual from consuming resources beyond their allotted time. The display showed charts and graphs that made it clear how all alien species had built-in limits that caused them to die peacefully between 80 and 120 standard years depending on their specific biology and environmental factors. The Zelkarian Empire expires at exactly 97 years. Veltar explained, the Morphic Collective reaches natural termination at 83 years, and even my own Krillian people follow the cosmic law of expiration at 114 years. He paused and looked directly at Hyunwoo Kim before continuing. Yet this human sits before us at 89 years, showing no signs of approaching expiration, and our medical scans indicate he may continue functioning for many more decades. A ripple of concerned sounds moved through the chamber as hundreds of different alien voices expressed shock and worry about this violation of natural law that they had never seen before in all their centuries of space travel and contact with new worlds. Dr. So-Young Park, who served as the human scientific liaison, stood up on the human platform, and her appearance only made the situation more disturbing to the alien observers because she was 93 years old and looked like she could easily live for another 50 years. Honored Consul members, she said in a calm voice that carried easily through the chamber's translation systems, perhaps we should examine the data more carefully before reaching conclusions about human biology. Veltar's 4 arms moved in a pattern that showed irritation mixed with fear. The data is clear, Dr. Park, and it shows that your species lacks the essential expiration protocol that maintains balance in all galactic civilizations. The massive display changed to show population charts and resource consumption models that demonstrated how every known species maintained stable numbers through natural death cycles that prevented any world from becoming overcrowded or depleted. Without proper expiration timing, Veltar continued, a species will consume all available resources and expand beyond sustainable limits until entire star systems collapse under the weight of unlimited population growth. Taemin Lee, who served as coordinator for human colonies throughout the local sector, stood up next to Dr. Park, and at 102 years old, he represented an even more serious violation of galactic biological norms, Consul Veltar. Taemin said, "Our colonies have maintained careful balance with their environments for over a century, and our population growth has actually slowed as our society has matured." This statement caused what could only be described as chaos in the chamber, as dozens of different alien species began talking at once in their various languages, while their translation systems struggled to keep up with the flood of excited and worried voices. The idea that a species could live longer while consuming fewer resources went against everything the galactic community understood about biology and civilization and resource management across the stars. Veltar raised all four arms for silence, and the chamber gradually became quiet again, though the tension in the air remained thick enough to feel. "The preliminary reports from your colonies suggest something even more disturbing than simple longevity." The display changed again to show files and records from human settlements on dozens of different worlds, and the data painted a picture that challenged everything the aliens thought they knew about how civilizations should develop. "Your people not only refuse to expire on schedule," Veltar said, "but they appear to become more productive and more valuable to their communities as they age beyond the normal termination point." Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim finally stood up and spoke for the first time during the session. "Consul Veltar, I believe there may be some misunderstanding about human nature and our approach to life and death." His words were simple, but they carried a weight that made every alien in the chamber pay close attention because they could sense something important was about to be revealed. "We do not refuse to expire," Hyunwoo continued. "We simply do not accept arbitrary limits on how long we can contribute to our communities and pursue our goals and care for those we love." The chamber fell completely silent as the aliens tried to process this concept that seemed to contradict every principle of biological organization they had learned over millions of years of galactic civilization. "You speak of expiration as if it were a choice rather than a biological imperative," Veltar said, and his voice carried confusion mixed with growing alarm. "How can any species survive without built-in population controls?" Dr. So-Young Park stepped forward. "Perhaps we should arrange for a joint scientific expedition to study human longevity research and medical practices before making any final judgments about our biological systems." The suggestion seemed reasonable, but many of the alien delegates looked worried about the implications of learning too much about human methods. "Of extending life beyond normal limits, I propose," Veltar announced, "that we establish an immediate investigation into this human anomaly to determine whether their biological malfunction poses a threat to galactic stability and whether corrective measures may be necessary." The vote was called quickly and passed by a large majority of the alien species who agreed that something needed to be done about humans who refused to die when they were supposed to, according to universal biological law. As the session ended and the various aliens returned to their ships and home worlds to report on this disturbing development, Hyunwoo Kim remained on the human platform, looking thoughtful about what would happen next. He had lived long enough to understand that fear often drives intelligent beings to make decisions they later regret, and he wondered if the galaxy was ready to learn the truth about human attitudes toward mortality and the technologies they had developed to support their unusual approach to life. The investigation would begin soon, and it would reveal things about humanity that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization in ways that none of the alien species could imagine. The research station orbiting New Sol Colony hummed with activity as alien scientists from across the galaxy arrived to study the human biological anomaly that had caused such concern at the Galactic Consul meeting. Dr. Ji-Hai Choi stood in the main laboratory watching as her new alien colleagues set up their strange instruments and testing devices that looked nothing like human medical equipment, but supposedly could analyze biological systems down to the molecular level. The Krillian scientist named Zektar had brought machines that projected purple light while making soft clicking sounds, and the morphic researcher called Blob 9 used devices that looked like living metal that changed shape as they worked. Dr. Choi Zektar said through his translation device, "We are ready to begin our examination of human subjects to identify the genetic defect that prevents proper expiration protocols." Ji-Hai smiled politely, but she could already tell that these alien scientists had completely wrong ideas about what they would find when they studied human biology and longevity research. Perhaps we should start with a tour of our medical facilities, she suggested, so you can see how we approach healthcare and life extension in our society. The alien team followed her through corridors lined with equipment that monitored thousands of human patients across the colony, and the visitors seemed surprised by how many of the humans they saw were far older than what their species considered normal. This human appears to be at least 150 years old, Blob 9 observed, while looking at a patient who was having routine medical maintenance. Yet your scanners show no signs of systemic failure or approaching termination. The patient was actually Dong Hyun Shin, who had reached the remarkable age of 247 years and was still working as the chief mechanical engineer for the colony's starship construction program. Grandfather Shin, Ji-hai called out, "Would you mind speaking with our visiting scientists about your health and work?" Dong-hyun looked up from the technical drawings he had been reviewing on his portable display and smiled at the group of alien researchers who were staring at him with expressions of shock and confusion. "Of course, Dr. Choi," he said, while standing up with the easy movement of someone much younger, "though I should mention that I have 3 new starship designs to finish before next month, so I cannot spare too much time." Zekatar's forearms began moving in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. "You claim to be designing starships at your advanced age when you should have expired decades ago according to universal biological law." Dong-hyun laughed with genuine amusement. "Expired? Why would I expire when I still have so much work to do and so many young engineers to train and so many new technologies to develop?" The alien scientists exchanged glances that clearly showed they had never encountered anything like this attitude toward aging and continued productivity in any species they had studied before. "But surely," Blob 9 said while its metallic body shifted to a darker color, "your mental faculties must be declining and your physical capabilities must be severely limited after so many years." Dong-hyun pulled up a holographic display that showed the technical specifications for his latest starship design, which incorporated advanced technologies that the younger human engineers had not yet mastered. "This new ship will be 30% more efficient than our current models," he explained, "and it includes safety features based on 2 centuries of my personal experience with spacecraft design and construction." The alien scientists spent the next hour examining Dong-hyun's work and running medical scans on his body and brain, and the results only increased their confusion about human biology. His cognitive function tests at levels far above what we would expect from a being of his age, Zekatar reported to his colleagues, and his physical condition shows only minor signs of aging despite living far beyond normal expiration parameters. Dr. Ji-hai Choi led the group to the next section of the medical facility where they encountered even more examples of humans who violated everything. The aliens understood about aging and biological limits. Hai-wan Young, who served as cultural liaison for the colony, was 134 years old and had just completed her 6th university degree in xenobiological studies while also raising her great-great-grandchildren. The key to understanding human longevity, Hai-wan explained to the fascinated alien researchers, is that we view death as an opponent to be fought rather than a natural conclusion to be accepted. This statement caused immediate chaos among the alien scientists who had been raised in cultures where accepting death at the proper time was considered a moral and biological imperative. "You fight against death itself," Zekatar said, and his voice carried a mixture of horror and disbelief. "How can any civilization survive if individuals refuse to make room for new generations?" Hai-wan smiled patiently. "Our new generations benefit from the accumulated wisdom and experience of their elders rather than having to rediscover everything from the beginning each time." Dr. Ji-hai Choi brought the group to her main research laboratory, where displays showed the results of centuries of human medical advancement focused specifically on extending healthy life rather than simply accepting biological limitations. "We have developed treatments for cancer that work by teaching the immune system to recognize and destroy malignant cells," she explained, "and we have created technologies that can repair damage to organs and even replace failing body parts." The alien scientists examined the data with growing amazement and concern because they had never Seen any species that put so much effort into fighting the natural processes of aging and death? Your medical technology is focused entirely on preventing expiration, Blob 9 observed, while our species have always concentrated on making the expiration process as comfortable and peaceful as possible, Jihai nodded. We believe that every human life represents irreplaceable knowledge and experience that should be preserved, as long as the individual chooses to continue living. Zektar's arms moved in patterns that showed extreme agitation. But without natural expiration cycles, how do you prevent overpopulation and resource depletion across your colonies? The question led to a detailed discussion of human population management and resource conservation that revealed another aspect of human society that the aliens found difficult to understand. Our birth rates naturally declined as our society matured, Haywan explained, and our longer-lived citizens have become more efficient at using resources rather than consuming them wastefully. The alien scientists spent several more hours examining human medical records and interviewing elderly humans who continued to work and contribute to their communities long past what any other species would consider normal. They discovered that humans routinely survived injuries and diseases that would be fatal to other species, and that they had developed psychological approaches to aging that emphasized continued growth and learning rather than gradual decline. This human named Mikyung-Yoon is 203 years old, Zektar reported while reviewing her medical file, and she is currently leading a terraforming project on one of the most dangerous worlds in this sector. The aliens realized that their investigation was revealing something far more significant than a simple biological anomaly, because humans had created an entire civilization based on the principle that individual lives could and should continue indefinitely. We came here expecting to find a genetic defect that we could correct, Blob 9 admitted. But instead we have discovered a species that has deliberately chosen to reject the biological limitations that govern all other known forms of life. Dr. Jihai Choi looked at her alien colleagues and could see that they were struggling to process information that challenged their most basic assumptions about biology and civilization. Perhaps, she suggested, you should spend some time observing our elderly citizens in their daily activities before drawing any conclusions about whether human longevity represents a problem that needs to be solved. The alien scientists agreed to extend their investigation, and over the following weeks they documented countless examples of humans who continued to excel in their chosen fields, long past the age when other species would have expired naturally. They watched Commander Jinho Bei, who at 156 years old still served as an active military officer while training soldiers who were descendants of people he had served with decades earlier. They observed Master Artisan Kyung-Suk Han, who at 178 years old created technological innovations that surpassed anything produced by younger human engineers. The more they studied human society, the more the alien scientists realized that they were witnessing something that could change the entire galaxy if other species learned about human approaches to aging and death. Their reports back to the Galactic Consul would need to address not just the biological aspects of human longevity, but also the social and technological implications of a civilization where knowledge and experience accumulated across centuries rather than being lost with each generation. The alien research team had been studying human colonies for 6 weeks, and what they discovered challenged everything they believed about civilization and the proper order of life across the galaxy. Elder Mikyung-Yoon stood on the observation deck of the terraforming station above the hostile world of Kepler 442b, and at 203 years old, she commanded a project that was transforming a dead planet into a garden world capable of supporting millions of lives. The atmospheric processors will be online within 18 months, she explained to the alien observers who had requested to see her work, and the first colonist ships should arrive 2 years after that. Zektar watched through the viewing ports as massive machines worked across the planet's surface under Mikyung's direction, and he could not understand how someone so far past normal expiration age could manage such a complex and demanding project. Elder Yoon, he said, using the respectful title that humans employed for their oldest citizens. Surely this work would be better handled by younger individuals with more physical energy and mental flexibility. Mi Kyung smiled with the patience that came from 2 centuries of experience dealing with people who underestimated her capabilities because of her age. I have supervised the terraforming of 7 worlds over the past 150 years, she replied, and each project taught me lessons that I apply to make the next one safer and more efficient. The alien scientists examined her work records and discovered that her terraforming projects had indeed become more successful over time with lower costs and fewer environmental problems compared to projects managed by younger humans. This contradicts all established patterns, Blob 9 observed while its metallic body shifted to colors that indicated confusion. In our species, the oldest individuals become less capable and must be cared for by the younger generation. Mi Kyung led the group to the main control center where dozens of human engineers and technicians worked under her supervision, and many of them were themselves over 100 years old. Experience builds upon experience, she explained, and the longer we live, the more we understand about how complex systems interact and how to anticipate problems before they occur. The alien research team spent the next several days observing the terraforming project and documenting how the elderly human workers demonstrated superior problem-solving abilities compared to their younger colleagues. Commander Jin-Ho Bei arrived at the terraforming station during the alien visit, and at 156 years old, he still served as an active officer in the Human Defense Corps. Commander Bei, Zektar said while reviewing his service record. You have been a military officer for over 130 years, which is longer than most of our species live entirely. Jin-Ho nodded. I have trained thousands of soldiers over the decades, and many of them now lead their own units while their children and grandchildren serve under my continued guidance. The aliens accompanied Jin-Ho to a training exercise where he worked with soldiers who ranged in age from 20 to 90 years, and they observed how the older trainees learned faster and made fewer mistakes than the younger ones. The young soldiers have enthusiasm and physical strength, Jin-Ho explained, but the older ones understand strategy and can anticipate enemy actions based on decades of accumulated knowledge. Blob 9 attempted to understand this concept, but surely physical decline must limit the effectiveness of elderly soldiers in actual combat situations. Jin-Ho demonstrated his point by participating in a combat simulation where his team of older soldiers defeated a team of much younger opponents through superior tactics and coordination. Physical capabilities do change with age, he admitted, but experience and wisdom more than compensate for any decline in raw strength or speed. The alien scientists documented this training exercise and added it to their growing collection of evidence that human aging followed completely different patterns than what they observed in other species. Master Artisan Kyung-Suk Han welcomed the alien visitors to her workshop, where she created technological innovations that pushed the boundaries of what human science could achieve. I am currently working on improvements to faster-than-light communication systems, she explained, while showing them devices that looked impossibly complex and delicate. At 178 years old, Kyung-Suk had spent more than a century perfecting her understanding of quantum mechanics and subspace physics. How can you continue to innovate at such an advanced age? Zektar asked. When most species reach their peak creativity in their younger years, Kyung-Suk activated a holographic display that showed the progression of her work over the decades and how each breakthrough had built upon previous discoveries. Young minds are excellent at generating new ideas, she said, but old minds are better at recognizing which ideas are worth pursuing and how to turn those ideas into practical applications. The aliens examined her latest inventions and found that they represented significant advances over anything currently available in galactic technology. Your communication system could revolutionize how different species coordinate across interstellar distances, Blob 9 observed. Yet it was created by someone who should have expired decades ago according to biological norms. The alien research team began to realize that they were witnessing something that went far beyond simple biological anomaly, because human civilization had created systems that actually became more capable as they aged. Young Mi Ro provided perhaps the most shocking example of human attitudes toward aging and continued development when the alien scientists discovered that she was 134 years old and pursuing her fourth doctoral degree. I completed my first doctorate in engineering when I was 30, she explained, then earned degrees in biology and physics, and now I am studying xenoarchaeology to better understand the ancient civilizations we encounter. The concept of someone continuing formal education for over a century was so foreign to the alien scientists that they had difficulty processing the information. In our societies, Zektar said, individuals complete their education in their youth and then apply that knowledge until expiration time arrives. Young Mai laughed, but there is always more to learn, and new fields of study to explore and connections to discover between different areas of knowledge. The aliens spent hours interviewing young Mi and discovered that her multiple degrees had made her uniquely qualified to solve problems that specialists, in single fields, could not address. Last year, I helped design a new type of starship engine by applying principles from xenoarchaeology to understand how ancient alien technologies had achieved similar results, she explained. The alien scientists realized that human longevity was not just about individuals living longer, but about creating a civilization where knowledge accumulated across centuries instead of being lost with each generation. Their investigation revealed that human colonies were governed by councils of elders who had centuries of combined experience, and that major decisions were made by individuals who had witnessed the long-term consequences of previous choices. Your oldest citizens are your most valuable resources, Blob 9 observed. While in our societies, the oldest individuals are considered burdens who consume resources without contributing. Dr. Ji-Hai Choi, who had been accompanying the alien research team throughout their investigation, nodded. We learned long ago that wisdom and experience are worth more than physical strength or quick reflexes. The aliens began to understand that human attitudes toward aging represented a fundamental difference in how they approached civilization itself. You do not see death as a natural conclusion, Zektar said, but as an enemy that steals knowledge and experience from your society. This realization led to deeper discussions about the philosophical differences between human and alien approaches to mortality, and the purpose of individual lives within larger communities. We believe that every person who dies takes irreplaceable knowledge with them, Young Mai explained. So we work to keep people alive as long as they choose to continue learning and contributing. The alien scientists finished their investigation with a growing sense of unease about what their discoveries would mean for the rest of galactic civilization. They had documented clear evidence that human longevity was not a biological defect, but a deliberate choice that had created a more advanced and capable society than anything they had encountered before. Their reports would need to address the possibility that other species might want to adopt human approaches to aging and death, which could fundamentally change the balance of power and knowledge across the galaxy. The question was whether the Galactic Consul would see human longevity as an opportunity to improve all civilizations or as a threat that needed to be contained before it spread to other species. The emergency session of the Galactic Consul convened 3 months after the alien research team had completed their investigation of human longevity, and the chamber buzzed with nervous energy as representatives from hundreds of species gathered. To discuss what many considered the greatest crisis in galactic history, Consul Veltar stood before the assembled delegates with reports that detailed everything the investigation had discovered about human society and the implications of their refusal to accept normal biological expiration cycles, fellow beings. He announced, "We face a threat to the established order that has maintained peace and stability across our galaxy for millions of years." The massive displays around the chamber showed data about human colonies and their productivity levels and resource consumption patterns that contradicted everything the aliens understood about how civilizations should function. These humans not only refuse to expire at the proper time, Veltar continued, but they become more valuable to their society as they age beyond normal limits, which threatens the fundamental principles upon which all our civilizations are built. President Sujin Kang sat calmly on the human platform, despite the hostile atmosphere in the chamber, and at 189 years old, She represented exactly what terrified so many of the alien species. Delegate Morketh from the Crystalline Dominion rose on his platform. "We demand immediate action to contain this human contamination before it spreads to other species and destroys the natural order of expiration that prevents galactic overpopulation." His words were echoed by dozens of other alien delegates who saw human longevity as a disease that could infect their own populations if left unchecked. "The humans must be quarantined to their current worlds," declared Representative Flux from the Gaseous Coalition, "and their medical technologies must be banned from trade with other species." President Sujin Kang requested permission to address the chamber, and her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the agitation displayed by most of the alien delegates. "Honored representatives," she began, "humanity has no desire to impose our biological choices on other species, but we also cannot accept demands that we artificially shorten our lives to conform to alien expectations." Her statement caused an uproar among the alien delegates who had never encountered a species that rejected the universal principle of predetermined expiration. "You speak as if death were optional," shouted Consul Veltar. "But biological limits exist to maintain balance and prevent any single species from overwhelming galactic resources," Sujin activated a holographic display that showed resource consumption data from human colonies compared to alien worlds of similar population size. "Our colonies actually consume fewer resources per capita than most alien settlements," she explained, "because our longer-lived citizens have learned efficient methods of production and conservation." The data contradicted alien assumptions about resource consumption, but many delegates refused to accept evidence that challenged their fundamental beliefs about biology and civilization. Dr. Woo-Sung Lim, who served as humanity's chief medical researcher, joined President Kang on the platform, and at 201 years old, he represented the kind of accumulated expertise that alien species had never experienced. "If I may address the chamber," he said, "I believe there are important facts about galactic biology that have been overlooked in this discussion." Consul Veltar reluctantly granted permission for the human scientist to speak, though his forearms moved in patterns that showed extreme reluctance. "My research into alien genetic patterns has revealed something that may surprise this assembly," Dr. Lim announced while activating displays that showed DNA analysis from dozens of different species. "The expiration protocols that limit the lifespan of galactic species are not natural biological features," he continued, "but artificial genetic modifications that were installed by an ancient civilization." The chamber fell silent as delegates struggled to process this information that challenged everything they believed about their own biology. These genetic modifications were designed to prevent younger species from developing into potential competitors, Dr. Lim explained, by ensuring that knowledge and experience died with each generation rather than accumulating over time. The revelation caused chaos in the chamber as hundreds of alien voices expressed shock and denial and anger at the suggestion that their natural biology had been artificially altered. "You claim that our expiration cycles are unnatural," Veltar said, "but these patterns have existed for millions of years across hundreds of species." Dr. Lim presented detailed genetic analysis that showed clear evidence of artificial modifications in the DNA of every alien species they had studied. "Humanity appears to have retained our original biological programming," he explained, "while other species were modified to include automatic expiration triggers." The implications of this discovery were staggering because it suggested that alien civilizations had been artificially limited for millions of years. Some delegates demanded proof, while others accused humans of creating false data to justify their biological abnormalities. Representative Zix from the Tentacled Collective rose to speak. "Even if these modifications exist, they serve important purposes in maintaining galactic stability and should not be removed." But other delegates began asking questions about what their species might have achieved if they had been allowed to develop their full potential. "How many discoveries were lost when our greatest scientists expired at 100 years, wondered Delegate Prime from the Mechanical Union. The debate continued for hours as the chamber divided between those who wanted to maintain the current system and those who began questioning whether artificial limitations had held back galactic civilization. "We propose," President Sujin Kang announced, That each species be given the choice to maintain their current biology or to explore methods of extending healthy lifespan. This suggestion terrified delegates who feared that removing exploration protocols would lead to chaos, and resource depletion across the galaxy. Consul Veltar called for order. As the debate became increasingly heated, the Krillian Empire will not tolerate any contamination of natural biological processes, and we are prepared to use military force to contain the human threat. His declaration of potential warfare shocked many delegates who had hoped for a peaceful resolution to the crisis. Other species have already begun requesting access to human medical technology, reported Intelligence Coordinator Nex from the Data Synthesis Collective. The news that some alien species were actively seeking human longevity treatments increased fears among those who wanted to maintain the status quo. We must act quickly, Veltar declared. Before this human contamination spreads beyond our ability to control it, but Admiral Bonhua Choi, who represented human military forces, stood up on the human platform. Humanity will defend its right to exist according to our own biological nature, and we will protect any species that chooses to explore extended lifespan. At 167 years old, Admiral Choi commanded more military experience than any other officer in the galaxy, and her quiet confidence suggested that humans were prepared for whatever consequences their longevity might bring. The session ended without resolution as delegates returned to their homeworlds to report on the crisis and debate whether to seek human medical assistance or join efforts to contain what many still saw as a dangerous biological anomaly. President Sujin Kang knew that the galaxy stood at a crossroads between maintaining artificial limitations that had constrained civilization for millions of years or embracing the chaotic potential of unlimited biological development. The choice would determine not only the future of humanity, but the evolution of galactic civilization itself. 6 months after the emergency session of the Galactic Consul, the galaxy had transformed in ways that no one could have predicted as the revelation about artificial genetic modifications spread across hundreds of worlds and sparked revolutions. In thinking about biology and civilization, Dr. Yoon Seo-nam stood in the main laboratory of the Galactic Institute for Life Extension that had been established on Nexus Prime through cooperation between humans and 12 alien species who had chosen to explore removing their exploration protocols. At 145 years old, she represented the kind of accumulated expertise that was becoming increasingly common as alien scientists worked with human researchers to develop safe methods of extending natural lifespan. The Morphic Collective has successfully removed exploration triggers from their genetic structure, she reported to the assembled research team, and initial results show no adverse effects on their society or resource consumption. The laboratory buzzed with activity as researchers from multiple species worked together to understand how artificial genetic modifications had been implemented and how they could be safely reversed. The Zelkarian Empire has also requested assistance, added Dr. Ki-Jun Park, who served as coordinator for alien species seeking life extension. Though they want to proceed more slowly than some others, the decision to help other species modify their biology had not been easy for humanity, because they understood that success would fundamentally change the balance of power across the galaxy. Elder philosopher Sang-hoon Oh, who at 234 years old had become the unofficial spokesman for human attitudes toward the transformation, addressed visiting alien delegates. Life is not a resource to be rationed, he explained, but a potential to be realized through continued growth and learning and contribution to the greater good. His words had become the unofficial motto for the life extension movement that was spreading across the galaxy, despite resistance from species like the Krillians, who refused to abandon traditional exploration cycles. Admiral Bonhua Choi commanded a joint fleet of human and allied alien ships that protected colonies and research stations from attacks by species who saw life extension as a threat to galactic stability. The Krillian Empire has launched 3 more raids against our research facilities, she reported during a security briefing. But their forces are having difficulty adapting to tactics developed by commanders with centuries of accumulated experience. The military advantages of extended lifespan were becoming obvious as human and modified alien forces consistently outperformed traditional armies whose officers expired just as they reached peak capability. Commander Taeho Kim has been leading space combat operations for over 90 years, Admiral Choi continued, and his tactical knowledge gives us significant advantages against enemies who lose their best officers to expiration protocols. The political situation across the galaxy remained tense as approximately half of all known species had chosen to explore life extension, while the other half maintained their traditional biological patterns. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim, who had started this crisis by simply being too old according to alien standards, now served as coordinator for the expanding alliance of species that had embraced extended lifespan. We have received formal requests for membership from 15 more species, he announced, including some who initially opposed our biological practices. At 90 years old, he was still considered young by human standards, but his role in transforming galactic civilization had made him one of the most influential beings in known space. The new paradigm, as historians were already calling it, represented more than just biological modification, because it had created unprecedented accumulation of knowledge and experience across participating civilizations. Our latest starship designs incorporate innovations from species that have been developing technology for thousands of years without losing their expertise to expiration cycles, reported Chief Engineer In Soo Yoon. The technological advances that resulted from combining the accumulated knowledge of multiple long-lived species had surpassed anything achieved in previous galactic history. We are developing faster than light travel methods that could make current ships obsolete, announced Dr. Hye-Jin Shin, who led the joint research project, by applying principles that no single species could have discovered alone. The cultural changes were equally dramatic as art and philosophy and science flourished under the guidance of beings who had centuries to perfect their understanding of complex subjects. Master artist Kyung-Min Lee, who had been creating sculptures for over 200 years, now worked with alien artists, whose extended lifespans allowed them to develop techniques that were impossible under traditional expiration systems. When artists can spend centuries perfecting their craft, she explained, they create works that transcend anything possible in shorter lifespans. The same principle applied to every field of endeavor, as extended lifespan allowed individuals to become true masters of their chosen disciplines. Our medical advances have accelerated dramatically, reported Dr. Sojin Han, because researchers can build upon their own previous work for centuries rather than training new generations to continue projects. The success of life extension research had created a feedback loop where longer-lived scientists made discoveries that further extended healthy lifespan for all participating species. We estimate that beings who undergo our latest treatments may live for thousands of years while maintaining full physical and mental capabilities, Dr. Yoon Seo Nam announced. The prospect of such extended lifespans terrified traditional species, but excited those who had embraced the new paradigm. President Su Jin Kong, now in her second century of life, addressed the reformed Galactic Consul, where traditional expiration-based species worked alongside long-lived civilizations. We stand at the beginning of a new era, she declared, where the accumulated wisdom of thousands of years will guide our exploration of the galaxy and our development as civilized beings. The chamber had been redesigned to accommodate the growing number of elderly beings who held positions of authority and influence that would have been impossible under traditional biological systems. The Krillian Empire and their allies remain committed to maintaining expiration protocols, she acknowledged, and we respect their choice while defending our own right to unlimited biological development. Elder philosopher Sang-hoon had proposed a solution that allowed both biological systems to coexist. Let us divide the galaxy between those who choose limited lifespans and those who embrace extended existence. The proposal had gained support from moderate species who wanted to avoid continued conflict over biological choices. We can establish separate sectors for different biological philosophies, suggested Ambassador Hyun-Woo Kim, and allow individuals to choose which system they prefer. The debate continued, but most observers agreed that the galaxy had been permanently changed by humanity's Refusal to accept artificial limitations on biological development. Dr. Woo Sung Lim, whose genetic research had revealed the truth about expiration protocols, continued studying the ancient civilization that had modified alien DNA millions of years. Ago, we are beginning to understand why these modifications were implemented, he reported. And the knowledge may help us prepare for challenges that extend far beyond our current galactic community. His research suggested that the artificial expiration cycles had been designed to prevent younger species from developing capabilities that might threaten something even older and more powerful. There may be forces in the galaxy that view our life extension movement as a threat to their own existence. He warned, but humanity and their allies had already committed to unlimited biological development regardless of the consequences. We cannot return to artificial limitations now that we understand their true nature, declared President Sujin Kang, and we will face whatever challenges arise from our choice to embrace our full potential. The new paradigm continued expanding as more species chose extended lifespan over traditional expiration cycles, and the galaxy adapted to civilizations, where knowledge and experience accumulated across centuries instead of dying with each generation. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim reflected on how a simple biological difference had transformed everything the galaxy thought it knew about life and death, and the purpose of individual existence within larger communities. The future remained uncertain, but it would be shaped by beings whose accumulated wisdom spanned thousands of years, and whose commitment to continued growth and learning had already revolutionized what was possible for galactic civilization.